Dr. Mitchell again. In this video, we're going to look some more at Boolean expressions and focus on evaluating these different relationships that use both relational operators and logical operators. So, what are we learning? We are going to actually get some more practice using Boolean expressions.
We're going to look at how to evaluate expressions that use relational operators and logical operators. So we'll be looking at how Boolean values are either true or false, the different relational operators that we can use, the not condition that reverses the result of that actual condition, the and condition, which tells us whether or not both of the conditions involved are true, and the or condition, or the or logical operator, which will tell us whether or not at least one of these conditions are true.
So, when we're looking at writing these different expressions, I can also write these expressions differently using logical operators to produce the same result.
So, for example, if I was checking whether or not age was greater than or equal to 16, that is actually the same as saying that age is greater than 16 or age equals 16. Or I could also say that age is not less than 16. So I have that condition where I'm checking is age less than 16, and then reversing that using the not operator on that condition. So let's look at some examples of this in an actual code segment. So let's say I have this particular code segment where I have num that's storing a value, is even is going to store a Boolean result, and range is also going to store a Boolean result. And then we're going to display whether or not is even or range. So I'm going to start off by storing the value 7 inside of my num variable. Is even is going to store the result of whether or not num mod 2 equals 0. In this case, since num is 7, 7 mod 2 is not 0, right? 7 is not evenly divisible by 2, or it does not leave a remainder of 0. So is even is going to store the value false. Range is then going to check whether or not num is greater than 5 and num is less than or equal to 10. So I'm trying to see whether or not this number is between 5 and 10 basically. In this case, I have to make sure to look for whether or not both of these conditions are true. So num, again, is the value 7. 7 is greater than 5, so that comes up true. When I look at the second condition, num less than or equal to 10, 7 is less than 10, so that is true. So as a result, the entire Boolean expression is going to give me true, which is then stored inside of range. Now my display statement, my display procedure
call is going to call
and check, output the result of is even or range. So basically, either one of those Boolean variables needs to contain the value true in order for the value true. Okay, so let's get some practice on your own. Take a moment to look at this video or this code segment. Pause the video and determine what is displayed after we run this code segment. So I have a name variable that's going to store the value Mitchell. That's me. Then I have an age variable that's going to store the value 34. That may or may not be my age. Then my display statement is going to check, or it's going to display the result of this Boolean expression. Okay, so let's look at this Boolean expression in pieces.
So first, I'm going to check, does name contain the value Mitchell, which it does. However, I have a not logical operator on the outside of that, so it's going to ultimately evaluate this whole expression to false. Now, let's look on the other side of the or at the age less than 40. So age currently contains the value 34, so that part of the condition is true. Since I have an or logical operator, I only need one of those conditions to ultimately be true. So I wind up displaying true. Okay, now let's look at an example AP style question. So in this question, we're asking in a certain country, person must be at least 16 years old to drive a car and must be at least 18 years old to vote. The variable age represents the age of a person as an integer. So what we're going to check for is which Boolean expressions evaluate to true if the person is old enough to drive, but not old enough to vote, and evaluates to false otherwise. So these are your answer options. Pause the video and take a moment to figure out which one would be your best answer choice. Now, when I look at these choices that I have here, the first one says age greater than or equal to 16 and age less than or equal to 18. So this option is checking that the person's age is greater than or equal to 16, which is okay because that's checking whether or not they're old enough to drive. But it's also checking that the age is less than or equal to 18. It doesn't actually work because we're looking for an expression to check that the person's age is greater than or equal to 16 and that their age is less than 18, meaning that they're not old enough to vote. The second option is checking that the person's age is greater than or equal to 16 and that their age is not greater than or equal to 18, meaning that they're not old enough to vote. So this option might work. So let's look at option number 3 to make sure whether or not that one works also. So option 3 is checking that a person's age is less than 18, meaning that they are not old enough to vote. And that their age is not less than 16, meaning that their age is greater than or equal to 16. Therefore, they are old enough to drive. That also meets the condition of what we're looking for, something that evaluates to true if the person is old enough to drive but not old enough to vote. So that means options 2 and 3 both give us what we're looking for here. So I'm going to go with choice D, which gives me 2 and 3 only. So just to recap, what we take away from this is how to evaluate expressions that use both relational operators and logical operators. Remember that our relational operators are any of these that are checking for equality or whether or not they're greater than or less than. And we can also use logical operators to combine conditions and check for whether or not multiple conditions are true, or to reverse or provide the opposite of what a condition currently evaluates to, using either not, we can use the and, or we can use the or. Thanks.